Let's get into the actual agenda of the meeting now. I'm assuming everything's okay, guys, so we'll progress. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about today is staff training, or an extension to a core module inside CCLAS that allows us to manage the staff training and set up staff training as well. So there's a couple of aspects to this. First of all, how would you configure it inside CCLAS as it stands? The second item is managing staff training. What are we going to do with the information? How are we going to assign training and set it as complete? Then some aspect of reporting, which is flexible, but I've got a presentation of a mode that we use, but we could change that. And then beyond that, something perhaps more significant is how we can actually control staff access to the LIMS system based on the training that's been set. So that's the approach that we're going to take here. And I'll begin and I'll bring up the demonstration. Okay, guys, so hopefully you're now looking at a CCLAS login screen. Okay, so I'll continue. Now, I'm going to log on as a user that has, let's say, a brand new user to the laboratory, a new staff member, and this lab manager has set this person up, and that person is somebody called Dave. And let's log straight in. Now, what we're looking at here is the CCLAS Velox screen. So basically, just as an intro to what Velox is, CCLAS is a set of core modules that all users will be familiar with. What you see in the menu in front of you is what we call the Velox menu. So while it contains core application, it also contains functionality that over the years we've accumulated as valuable, and we've included that as an out-of-the-box functionality that's available for anyone who is interested in deploying a LIMS system and wants something that's fully formed. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to move straight in and talk about the first item, which is the configuration for staff training. So what we actually do is use a core module in the system called lab maintenance. And lab maintenance is, as it sounds, it's used for keeping tags on instrument servicing requirements and schedules, for manual tasks that may be required around the lab. It's got a fairly generic use, and so it's quite flexible in that. Now, on this screen, you'll see that we've got a couple of items under lab maintenance: training programs and training records. This is how we would configure training programs into the CCLAS LIMS system. Now, a training program is just that. It's a course, basically. It's a course that you can pass. It's a course that you have to sit. It's a course that we can reschedule. So let's have a look at a few simple items in here. We'll start off with the simplest of all, which is lab induction. Now, a lab induction is something I assume that you would do once only. The information that you can see here is quite basic. We have a name for this training course. We could put a notes or document file in here, which is actually the content of that course. The course can be active, and we can have a schedule and repeat rate for it. Now, let's assume that lab induction is a once-off, and the only time you have that happen is when you arrive in the lab on the first day. So this is a one-off. It's a once repeat. I'll just go to another fairly basic one. Let's have another look. Ethics and conduct. You'd want to be doing that one fairly quickly with starting your new organization. Very simple again. It's got a monthly repeat schedule, 6 monthly, my apologies. And that's all there is to say about it in configuration. It's that simple. Then we move on to ones that are a little bit more involved. At the top of the screen of maintenance code, you see I've got an AAS level 1 to 4. And let's assume that what that means is it's a level of sophistication in this particular lab member in working with AAS data. So let's go and discover how we configure that. For starters, this thing is a repeat schedule, as you can see. It's repeated, has to be repeated on a 12-monthly schedule. But there's some extended properties that we have in the user screen that we'll go and have a look at now. Now, when it comes to this type of work, we've got a training type. And this type of training, because of where it's going to lead us, is a type 1, which is scheme access in lab batches and production jobs. That's the term, and that makes this a slightly different type of training module. Now, associated with this, we have a scheme access level that runs through from 0 through to 4. And these are effectively these increasing levels of access that you've got to the CCLAS system or the data in the system, depending on how far you've got. And this one is set at 1, and we'll leave it there. Now, the other information in here is a list of all the schemes. Hello, could somebody tell me if we're still there? I just hit a button on there. I didn't mean to. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I'll continue. Because this is the result verification training type, we have a drop-down list of all the important schemes or methods inside the laboratory, and we're able to associate this particular training course with one or more schemes. This one is called AAS Level 1, and so what we've done here is we've said all schemes that include AAS will be part of this training program. It will be covered, these schemes will be covered if you sit through this training program. Okay, now that's how we configure things. It's fairly straightforward. There's a bit more detail if we want to lock in access down the track. I'll move on now and we'll have a look at me as a staff member. Keep all that open. And okay, so we're working with me. Now, normally I've logged in as Dave. I wouldn't have access to this staff application, but I've granted myself it, so I'm not juggling to get where I need to be. Now, we have a screen here that is effectively my training records. Now, given that this is day 1, I'm going to give myself some startup training. So I'm going to add a course, and I'll also add the ethics course, which we looked at before. Now, all of these courses, as you know, are training programs, and this is just a drop down. So it's a self-configured exercise, ethics and conduct. I'll add that course. Now, what have we got here? I've set up the course for today, and what that means is it's next scheduled to run today. The fact that these items are grayed out means that I haven't actually finished them yet. I haven't actually completed them. So I'm going to minimize this one, and I'm going to go one step further. And we've got an item that I've added called training schedules. And really, this is just a way of presenting to a user, a lab manager, the total training status in the laboratory. Now, before I click on that, let me just click on one of the other applications we've got. We've got a dashboard capability on the menu that even for CCLAS users who are in on this meeting, they may not have seen or used that. So the information I'm going to show you could be dashboarded so that immediately any user logs onto the system, they will see outstanding training or imminent training coming up. But for the moment, I've just got this little application running. Now, if we look at that, basically, and then look at the Dave user, you can see that we've got 2 items and they're both highlighted red insofar, and which means that I'm actually due to do them. These are just training courses. They'll be notified of this, but the impact of not having done them is just that you're going to appear on the dashboard every day as not having completed the training. So I'm just going to minimize that one as well. And now I'm going to go back to my staff. And what we'll do is I'll actually, as the training's been completed, in the way we've got it designed, the lab manager or person responsible will come in and say, yes, I'm happy that they've finished their lab induction, and will complete the course. So it's marked as complete. When that happens, what you'll see is that it's entirely cleared, the lab induction. There's no next schedule because it was a one-off process. As it happens, I've also done the ethics and conduct, so I can click on that one and complete the course as well. And that one, which was scheduled to run every 6 months, has rescheduled itself for the 16th of January 2021. Now, if I go back to the report again, actually, and requery, whoops. And well, there was a blip there, but what we have now is that Dave has actually qualified for the lab induction and ethics and conduct, and he's qualified for induction forever. There's no expiry. And on the 16th of July, today, he qualified for ethics and conduct, and he'll have to go and sit that one again. So come the 16th of January, or even the 10th of January 2021, that the ethics and conduct will start showing red again to say that it's imminent and required. Okay, now I'm going to move on and have a look at the scheme level training that we talked about. So I'm going to add a new course for myself. And that course will be AAS level 1, which is the starting point. And we'll add this course in, and again, it's not been sat yet, so I haven't actually done this. Now, what I'm going to do now is going to try and run CCLAS data entry, should I say. Find the right menu first, and then find data entry. And I'm going into lab batches, 50, and I've got a brand new one here. Now, what I'm actually trying to do is enter data into this scheme at the moment, and it's persistently, it's not going to go in. And the reason is that we have tied this scheme to the training, and what we've said is that unless you're at the right level, you can't do anything in this scheme. So at best, this user without training can open up this scheme, have a look at the data, and do absolutely nothing else. If I try to run any of the functions, I'm sure, just have a look at one. Users not authorized. I have no authorization because I've got no training. So what I'm going to do again is go back, and this is a very accelerated frame of reference, and I'm just going to mark myself as having completed this course. So I'll select it and complete it. And now it's scheduled again for a year down the track. And if we go and have a quick look at our report and requery, and I've got that little problem again. My AAS level 1 is now completed and is not required again until July 2021. Now, that done, I can now enter data into CCLAS and save it. Now, part of the Velox system, there's a multi-tiered validation system, and I can't quite recall, but the first level is checking and unchecking of batches. So as a level 1 user, I can enter my data and I can check it, which means that I'm happy with it and it goes through to another level of validation. Now it's checked, it's locked, because a level 1 user is able to check his data or her data, and they're able to enter it, but I now cannot put any new data in or change this. It's completely locked out of me because my level of access is not high enough. Okay, and this, we'll do one more session of this. I'll go through another level with the training. The other thing, let me just add level 2. And I can immediately mark the course as completed because we are running out of time. The other thing is as well, we've got another couple of options. If I select level 1, because I've hit level 2, there's no need for me to repeat the level 1 training. So I can clear the schedule. And all that means is that I'm going to clear the next schedule date so that never becomes a course that I have to do again because I've gone up to the next level. And that would be a practical experience. Now, with that done, I suspect we'll see whether I can actually change. Yes, I can now change data because I'm a level 2. But what I can't probably do at that level is validate the batch. I might be able to. Well, it won't let me anyway because there's actually reasons why it's been blocked from validation. But to actually be able to validate, you need to be level 3. Okay, so what we've got here, and remember this can be applied a training course for every scheme in the system to individually control access and what level you can manipulate data inside CCLAS. So at the simplest level, it's just a way of keeping track of how we're going in terms of our training status. And it gets further and into this where we're controlling the way CCLAS behaves. Okay, guys, I think that's probably as much as I can say about the training module. As I said, it's a Velox extension. It exists in the Velox solution. We can probably, if anybody out there has CCLAS and likes the look of it, we could probably factor it into your system if you wanted without too much difficulty. Okay, so that said, if anyone's got any questions or comments, if questions come to mind later, or if anyone is actually interested in this aspect of LIMS control inside their laboratory or in looking at Velox in more detail, please just email us and we'll make sure we get back to you, myself or one of the other guys. Look forward to hearing from you.